Please, just let me go. I won't tell anyone. What do you want from me? Leave me alone.
The night was restless, heavy with humidity and the distant echo of thunder rolling across the horizon. A small neon sign buzzed in front of the Tropic Diner, its electric hum a lonely song in the middle of nowhere. The parking lot was quiet except for the presence of gleaming chrome motorcycles, their silhouettes sharp under the dim glow of the sign. The smell of gasoline still lingered in the air, mingling with the scent of bacon and burnt coffee wafting from the building. Inside, the diner was a patchwork of clinking silverware, tired conversations, and the occasional hiss of the grill. Worn-out linoleum floors bore the weight of decades, and the vinyl seats sagged where countless travelers had sat before. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering as though even they were exhausted. Behind the counter, Emily moved quickly from customer to customer, balancing a tray of mugs filled with steaming coffee. She was only 22, but life had already demanded more of her than most could bear. With her father gone since she was a child and her mother bedridden from a long illness, Emily had become the provider. Every shift she worked was more than just hours punched on a clock, it was medication for her mother, groceries for the week, and a fragile thread keeping their lives together. She had a softness about her, though weariness lined her face. Her uniform, a blue dress with white trim and an apron tied neatly at the waist, had been mended more times than she cared to admit. Yet no matter how frayed the fabric, Emily still wore it with quiet dignity. It was nearing midnight when the bell above the door rang, drawing her tired eyes toward the entrance. A man walked in. He was broad-shouldered, his arms covered in a patchwork of ink, serpents, skulls, and jagged shapes crawling over his skin. His leather boots thudded against the floor as he swaggered inside, his presence filling the room with unease. He smelled of cheap whiskey and motor oil, his eyes sharp and restless. Emily's pulse quickened. She'd seen men like him before, men who tested boundaries, men who thought kindness was weakness. She forced a polite smile as he took a seat at the counter. "What'll it be?" she asked softly, her voice trembling despite her effort. The man leaned in, his gaze lingering on her in a way that made her skin crawl. "Coffee. Black. And maybe, some company while I drink it." Emily's stomach nodded. She nodded quickly, pouring him a cup before retreating a step. But the man wasn't done. He reached across the counter with startling speed, his hand grabbing the collar of her uniform. The sound of tearing fabric ripped through the diner like thunder. Emily gasped, stumbling back, her torn shirt exposing her shoulder as her face flushed crimson. The laughter that spilled from the man's mouth was cruel, echoing against the walls. "What's the matter, sweetheart? Don't be shy." For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Emily clutched the ripped fabric against her chest, her eyes filling with tears. She felt small, powerless, every ounce of strength drained from her body. But what the tattooed stranger didn't realize was that he wasn't alone with Emily. At the far end of the counter, a group of men sat quietly, their presence unassuming but heavy. They wore black leather vests, their patches stitched with the infamous winged skull. Their arms bore tattoos that told stories of loyalty, brotherhood, and battles fought on the road. They were the Hell's Angels, and their silence had been deliberate until now. One of them pushed back his chair, the sound scraping across the linoleum like a warning bell. He rose slowly, towering, his silver beard catching the light. His vest bore the name Reaper. His eyes, sharp and unforgiving, locked onto the stranger. "You've got 3 seconds to let her go," Reaper said, his voice a low growl that vibrated through the room. The stranger froze, his laughter faltering. His hand loosened slightly, but arrogance was a stubborn poison. He sneered, spitting on the floor. "She's just a waitress. Don't tell me how to." The rest of the angels stood in unison. The diner seemed to shrink as their presence filled every corner. Their tattoos told of wars with rivals, their scars whispered of nights darker than this one, and their eyes burned with the fire of men who protected their own and those who couldn't protect themselves. Emily stumbled free, clutching her torn uniform, her breaths ragged as tears streamed down her face. Reaper stepped closer, his shadow swallowing the stranger. "That just a waitress deserves more respect than you'll ever understand." You crossed a line, son. And you don't walk away from that. The stranger's bravado cracked. His eyes darted from one angel to the next, realizing he was surrounded by a brotherhood that didn't bluff. His mouth went dry, his knees threatening to buckle. The diner's silence was deafening. He let out a shaky laugh, trying to cover his fear. Fine. Fine. No harm meant. He raised his hands and backed toward the door, mumbling curses under his breath. But before he could escape, Reaper grabbed him by the collar, pulling him close. If I ever see you lay a hand on a woman again, you'll wish you hadn't. His words weren't a threat, they were a promise carved in steel. The stranger's face paled. He tore free and stumbled into the night, disappearing into the shadows. The tension inside the diner lifted, though Emily's body still trembled. She stood frozen, tears dripping onto the counter. Reaper removed his vest and draped it over her shoulders, shielding her from shame. You're safe now, he murmured. His voice, though gruff, carried a gentleness that startled her. Don't let anyone make you feel less than you are. Emily looked up, meeting his gaze, and for the first time that night, she felt seen, not as a waitress, not as a girl struggling to hold her world together, but as a person worthy of dignity and respect. Before we go further, let me pause for just a moment. If stories like this, stories of resilience, courage, and unexpected guardians, speak to you, I invite you to subscribe to Soul Touch Stories. Each story here is crafted to not only entertain but to touch something deeper, something human. And if you're with me so far, there's more to Emily's story you'll want to hear. In the days after, Emily found it hard to sleep. Every time the bell above the diner door chimed, her chest tightened. She replayed that moment endlessly, the rip of her shirt, the stranger's laughter, the helplessness she felt. Shame has a way of burrowing deep, whispering lies that a person is weak, that they deserved what happened. But then she would remember the angels. She would remember how they rose as one, how they stood unyielding in her defense. Their silence had spoken louder than the stranger's cruelty. And slowly, Emily realized that night hadn't broken her. It had lit something inside her she hadn't known was there. Her mother noticed first. You carry yourself different, she whispered from her hospital bed, her frail hand brushing Emily's cheek. Like you found your strength again. Emily smiled faintly. She didn't tell her mother about the incident, it would only worry her. But she carried Reaper's words like armor, don't let anyone make you feel less than you are. Weeks passed. The stranger never returned, but his shadow lingered. Emily forced herself to keep working, to keep smiling, because giving up wasn't an option. She needed every tip, every shift. Her dreams of nursing school had been shelved years ago, sacrificed to care for her mother. Yet now, she wondered if maybe one day she could take them back. One quiet evening, as Emily wiped down the counter, the distant roar of engines filled the night. The sound grew louder until the windows rattled. Her heart skipped as the angels rolled into the lot, their bikes gleaming under the neon glow. They didn't come inside to eat. They came to nod at her through the glass, a silent acknowledgement that they were still watching, still guarding. Emily pressed her hand to her chest, a lump in her throat. It wasn't just protection. It was respect. It was the reminder that in a world so quick to exploit weakness, there were still those who valued honor. If Emily's courage and the unspoken loyalty of the angels has touched you, I'd love for you to take a moment to like this story, leave a comment, and subscribe to Soul Touch Stories. Every click helps us continue sharing tales that matter, stories that stay with you long after the final word. Years later, Emily would look back on that night not as the evening she was humiliated, but as the night she learned the truth about strength. Strength isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to stand in spite of it. She carried that lesson with her into nursing school, into the long nights studying, into the long days caring for patients who needed someone to fight for them. And whenever she faced doubt, she thought of leather vests and roaring engines, of a brotherhood that refused to let her fall. The stranger had meant to break her. Instead, he had revealed her own resilience and shown her that even the roughest souls can be guardians when the world needs them most. Perhaps that is the twist we all forget, not all angels wear halos. Some ride on thunder and leather, carrying respect in their silence and honor in their fists. And sometimes, The people we least expect are the ones who remind us of our worth.